I'm here to share a little bit of our implementation in a Sao Paulo school that we made with our 3D application developed in our laboratory at the University of Sao Paulo. Okay. The Laboratory for Roman Provincial Archaeology, located in the University of Sao Paulo's Museum of Archaeology and Ethnology, developed and released its virtual reality application called DOMUS in 2013. DOMUS consists of a Pompeian-inspired ancient Roman house that allows the user to navigate through its rooms, visualizing specific information such as the relevance of oil lamps, the religious cults, and the local production of pottery. The DOMUS app was made entirely by archaeologists, representing the pioneer effort of Brazilian researchers in producing the very first cyber-archaeological project in our country. In a few words, we can explain cyber-archaeology as a dialogue between archaeology and virtual reality. Cyber-archaeology is not a passive process. The user does not only watch a rendered video, listening to the explanations about what is seen on the screen. In the cyber-archaeological process, the user is part of the knowledge, being responsible for the development of cognition with the three-dimensional reconstruction. In that way, cyber-archaeology is necessarily interactive. It is the result of digital data gathering in the archaeological field, which is next analyzed by archaeologists into immersive environments, such caves or power walls, and made available to the general public later using less expensive interactive devices, such as smartphones, tablets, and personal computers. Cyber-archaeology, as the name suggests, is fundamentally a cybernetic cycle. It starts with a fieldwork and then continues to data information gathering, interpretation, evaluation, feedback, and finally, embodiment. The DOMUS app was developed aiming to the general public, mainly teachers and students. From the study of archaeological remains from Pompeii and Herculaneum, the researchers established the major points that could be interesting to work with in classrooms by the teachers. Once chosen, we began the simultaneous process of writing the supporting texts and modeling the ancient domus. Each researcher being specializing in a particular Roman aspect, we were able to account for a wide range of subjects from architecture to economics. Here I have some image, that's the 3D model. For the 3D modeling, Autodesk Maya was used for every object, while Unity engine was utilized to develop the interactive. Here I have a short video with the final product. And all the modeling and programming was made by me. Of course, after we talk about the main aspects that we wanted to put in the visualization. In this case, it's like an FPS game, so you only use your keyboard and your mouse to look around. Those are some callouts that we put through the house. Each cubicle represents one stage of art from Roman period. Valarium. Let me skip it too. Initially, the use of virtual reality by our lab was intended to develop a cooperative project among its researchers who fulfilled its role of diffusion scientific dissemination. The subsequent project of conducting an educational activity with this project attended to two key demands: to introduce students to the use of new technology as an educational resource, and to perform a test to verify the reception by one of the intended audience, students from 10 to 11 years old. It is expected that all age groups can benefit and learn more about Rome with DOMUS app. We propose an educational project that allows an effective dissemination of research and serves as a guide for the next developments. The main 10 goals are here: enable an otherness experience for students so they can reflect on the historical use of the house, make use of history of everyday life, a much more approachable way to present history to students, discuss the technological and historical choices that were made during the development of the application, and evaluate the reception of the application. Amongst the questions raised are: what is a Roman domus? What are the parts that compose it? How the inhabitants live in there? What the materiality can tell us about them? And what about us? What messages our house does transmit on their way we live nowadays? The implementation of our proposal occurred in 2 steps. On the first day, the students worked in groups to walk through the domus into the school's computer laboratories. Similarly to a digital game, they should find all the explanatory texts scattered around the domus. Likewise, the Pompeian image gallery, which is part of the domus, was shown to discuss how the images of the city provided the basis for the 3D application. On the second day, the students handled and compared Roman replicas of objects with contemporary ones that have similar functions, such as oil lamps and flashlights or Roman and Brazilian coins. The educational activities with the domus during the first day were divided in 3 stages. First, educationalist orientation before activity. In this initial stage, the educators presented themselves, gave information about the Museum of Archaeology and Ethnology, and explained to the students the activity. Before applying the domus, the students were asked about what they knew in relation to archaeology, to Rome and to Pompeii. Many mentioned the recent film about the city, that Pompeii from 2014, and therefore contribute with some information. In general, they understand archaeology as the study of old things, and dinosaurs were always mentioned. Rome, for them, is well remembered as a very old city. Carried out this initial conversation, a challenge was put to the students. They should find all cults around the domus and write them. The estimated time for this first part of the activity was approximately 10 minutes. Second, virtual tour. The students had 15 to 20 minutes to stroll around the domus. The 3 educators, Tatiana Bina, Ana Paula Tawil, and me, and the teacher responsible for the class, Alessandro Gregory, were available, walking through the computer lab if the students had some difficulties. Conversation with the educators. At this point, the students reported to the educators which texts were found. This was also the moment where students expressed their impressions of the application and about the activity as a whole. In addition to the domus, the image gallery that accompanies their house was shown, and the educators commented on the photographs of Pompeii, discussing, even quickly, as the images of the ancient city formed the basis for building that ideal Rome home that was created in 3D. Lastly, educators and the responsible teacher warned students that there will be a questionnaire to be answered in the future. The school provided excellent structure for the activity. Nevertheless, some computers were not able to run the application. Even the online version was quite slow, taking too long time to load. The first of the participating classes was divided into pair groups initially. However, as the computers showed signs that would not work, the students were rearranged to the available working machines. The students walked through the house and took notes of the texts. Most students did not see similarity between the Roman house and their own house when asked about it. Some asked if the house was real, and the educators explained that it was a model of an ideal home. In general, students realized that it was a house of rich people, and so they said that the life of Roman was very good. Some photos of Pompeii were shown as the educators talked about the archaeological work, retaking what the students had said. The second stage, the handling of the objects, followed the scripts in the three classes. Discussion of archaeology. The students were asked about what they think the archaeology is. This little conversation was aimed to prepare students for the handling of objects. When educators arrived, the students of the first class were sitting on a circle outside the classroom. The script was respected, but only the oil lamp and flashlight were fully explored. The coins were just mentioned due to the lack of time. Some students remember the Roman DOMUS mentioning some objects and features of the three-dimensional model. The last class was received by the educators in the classroom without changing the spatial configuration of the room. At the beginning, they were silent, but during the activity, there were parallel conversations. The dynamic continued as planned. Performed in the classroom seems to have been positive, avoiding the agitation of the students resulting from their displacement. Handling objects. We had a Roman coin, Brazilian coin, ancient oil lamp replica, and flashlight. Sitting in a circle, the students were able to manipulate these objects, carefully observing them with regard to the form, raw materials, function, value, etc. The time allotted for this part of activity was approximately 20 minutes. It was common in the three classes the strangeness in relation to the handling of the flashlight and the Brazilian coin. However, when the educators explained the reason for the presence of these objects, the students seemed to understand the relationship that was intended. The DOMUS objects and structures were mentioned by the three groups. The fountain of the peristylium was a constant presence, as well as mention of the various rooms of the house. Discussion between educators and students about the objects with the ultimate goal of extracting information from the objects on the human groups that produced them have been reserved for this activity 20 minutes. At the end of the three classes, the educator sought to explain to the students that what they experienced in the dynamic was a little bit of how archaeologists work, asking questions and testing hypotheses from the objects. Before handling, during the conversation about archaeology, there was great concern emphasizing its difference to paleontology, a fairly common confusion in the three classes. The students always cited dinosaur fossils as archaeological object study. With respect to their technological aspects, the application of DOMUS in a school made it clear that the app has its performance directly related to the specifications of computers. Almost half of the school's machines had dedicated graphic video cards, but, being quite outdated, they have not been able to run the DOMUS in its acceptable frame rate, 30 frames per second. This fact reflected negatively on the student experience, breaking the sense of immersion. The drop frame made some students lose their patience and scatter their attention. The issue concerning the initialization failure is related to the school's computer, not to the DOMUS itself. Probably to the age of the students, the degree of realism in DOMUS was not mentioned. It proved crucial for the next three-dimensional laboratory projects. For the future, the details of objects should not be modeled, but rather textured, in order to reduce the number of polygons and consequently improve the application performance. In educational terms, we can say that even if the technology is not essential, it effectively attracted the attention of students and seems to have had an even great impact among those who were familiar with video games, presenting itself as an innovative and valuable resource for learning history. Virtual reality has proven to be a resource trend, especially in the museums and archaeological work, to offer something that otherwise is difficult to implement, the feeling of being in a past reality. It is important to emphasize that teachers, educators, and everyone involved with virtual reality should expose its limits. In particular, point out that, like all reconstitution, it's drawn from hypotheses. Finally, it's noted that the application of technological resource and the development of new didactic tools for history teaching do not mean to the teacher miracles, alternative work, or merely a stimulus in order that the students becomes interested in the school universe. It is a proposal designed to bring to the school more possibilities and resources for the students to appropriate a cultural heritage, invigorating the willingness to learn and promoting the collective construction of knowledge. That's it. Thank you very much.